Moving on to the start of the 3D era with Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Quan Chi uncovered the secret of the Dragon King's immortal army after narrowly escaping their Netherrealm. He approached Shang Tsung with a proposal to join forces, forming the Deadly Alliance. Together they planned to dominate the realms by reanimating Onaga's army, using a soul needle fueled by souls Shang Tsung consumed. To eliminate any threats to their plans, they targeted Shao Kahn, weakened after his failed invasions, and Liu Kang, Earthrealm's champion. The sorceress staged an attack on Shao Kahn, seemingly killing him, though it was later revealed that they had only killed a clone. They then travelled to Earthrealm and ambushed Liu Kang, killing him while he was training at the Wuxi Academy, which honestly was one of the craziest feats since Shao Kahn couldn't get it done alone. In defiance of the Elder Gods, Raiden stepped down as an Elder God to rally Earthrealm's warriors against the Deadly Alliance, probably because he realized Fusion was useless. Among the combatants were newcomers like Frost, Li Mei and Nitara, as well as veterans like Kung Lao, Kitana, Jax, Sonya, Kenshi, and the now restored Cyrax. Despite their efforts, the heroes were unable to stop the sorcerers. The Deadly Alliance defeated Earthrealm's warriors, killing or scattering most of them. As the Deadly Alliance neared the completion of their plan, they remained unaware of the creative threat looming over them, the prophesized return of the Dragon King, Onaga, who would reclaim his power and reassert his dominance. The sorcerer's temporary victory laid the groundwork for Onaga's resurgence and the chaos that would follow. Which leads us on to the events of Mortal Kombat Deception, where the narrative actually takes place at different points in the timeline. The reason why I saved the bulk of these events until now was simply because I believe it will be easier to explain this way, and it easily follows the chronology of the games. These events go back to the young Earthrealmer Shujinko, who was approached by Damashi, a spirit claiming to be an agent of the Elder Gods. Damashi tasked him with collecting the 6 Kamidogu from each realm, supposedly to protect the realms. To aid him in his mission, Damashi granted Shujinko the ability to absorb and use the combat skills of others. Over decades, Shujinko travelled across the realms, facing numerous challenges and gaining strength, notably being trained by Bo Rai Cho in his younger years. In his early journey, he trained with Bihan and Kuai Liang's father, and learnt the cryomancer techniques of Sub-Zero. After that session, the Lin Kuei tasked Shujinko with collecting the Earthrealm Kamidogu, in which he accepted, stole, and placed it in the Nexus under Damashi's orders. It seems like the Lin Kuei have the brawn, but not the brains. In the Netherrealm, he bore witness to the rivalry between Ashura and Ermac, which led to this epic confrontation.
Is this the sum of your might, Ashura? It will take much more to defeat us.
And more you shall receive!
While in Chaos Realm, he assisted Havoc in defending the realm against the Saiyan Guard, but the waters of Chaos Realm aged him considerably. Later in Outworld, he confronted Baraka and the Tarkatan Horde, saving an entire city from destruction by enlisting the help of Hotaru and the Saiyan Guard. Finally in Edenia, he helped Queen Sindel repel an invasion led by Shao Kahn. During these visits, he collects all of the Kamidogu. However, slowly he starts to question what the purpose of his quest is. This is further amplified due to contradictions such as Shujinko being tasked by the Elder Gods but needing to purposely corrupt his soul to retrieve the Netherrealm Kamidogu, which is later purified by Nightwolf. After successfully collecting all 6 Kamidogu, Shujinko returned to the Nexus ready to present them to the Elder Gods. However, he discovered that Damashi was actually Onaga, the Dragon King in disguise. Onaga used Shujinko to gather the Kamidogu to resurrect himself and claim Shinnok's amulet, aiming to unite the realms under his rule. Onaga merged with Reptile's body, fully restoring his physical form, while Earthrealm's warriors, led by Raiden, faced the deadly alliance of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung in Outworld. Raiden, defying the Elder Gods, confronted the deadly alliance alone, but was defeated. Following the betrayal between sorcerers, Onaga arrived, rendering their combined efforts futile. In a desperate move, Raiden unleashed his full godly essence in a massive explosion, killing himself, the sorceress, and destroying the Soul Nadir. However, the blast had no effect on Onaga, who now possessed Shinnok's amulet, and the allegiance of the Dragon King's army. Raiden's essence reformed in Earthrealm, now corrupted and enraged by Onaga's influence and humanity's failures. He desecrated Liu Kang's grave, resurrecting him as a zombie enforcer to punish those who endangered Earthrealm. Meanwhile, Onaga revived Earthrealm's fallen warriors and allied with the Tarkatan Horde and Order Realm soldiers, using them to enforce his dominance and protect his plans to fuse the Kamidogu. Determined to undo his mistake, Shujinko rallied the remaining warriors to combat Onaga. Shujinko absorbed their combined fighting power and shattered the Kamidogu, weakening Onaga. As Onaga attempted to retreat, Nightwolf used ancient techniques to bind the Dragon King's spirit to the Netherrealm, freeing Earthrealm from his corruption. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is that I didn't go more in depth as to what happens during Shujinko's adventure, because these events are told through Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode, which isn't entirely canon to the timeline. This is due to certain inconsistencies with characters such as presumably Noob showing up in Chaos Realm, and Shujinko's aging not matching up exactly with the given timeline. However, the main key events do still happen, which is why it's still worth going through. Moving on from that, we reach the events of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which is the end of the original timeline. Centuries before the Battle of Armageddon, Dagon, one of the sons of Argus, was awakened prematurely by the dragon Kero, due to Shinnok's manipulation. Consumed by greed for the power Blaze possessed, Dagon formed the Red Dragon clan, enslaved Kero, and sought to kill his brother Taven to claim the prize for himself. The Red Dragon experimented on its members and rivaled the Black Dragon, secretly using the special forces to further its goals. Meanwhile, Blaze was imprisoned to guard the egg containing Onaga, the Dragon King. When Taven was awakened at the proper time by Orin, he embarked on his quest to fulfill the prophecy and stop Armageddon. Along the way, he faced numerous foes, including the Red Dragon, Lin Kuei, and Noob Saibot's Shadow Warriors. He eventually confronted Dagon at Charred Mountain, where Dagon revealed his role in their parents' death, and his jealousy over their favouring of Taven. Taven defeated his brother, but learned that the power struggle among the realms was nearing its peak. Simultaneously, Quan Chi, revived through, shenanigans, Shinnok's magic, teleportation, you take your pick, under Shinnok's orders, united the major villains, including Shao Kahn, Onaga, and Shang Tsung. Again, revived due to shenanigans, to claim Blaze's power for themselves. Meanwhile, Raiden, though corrupted and unstable, aligned with the forces of light, including Earthrealm's warriors, to stop the forces of darkness. Both factions converged on the Edenian crater, where the Battle of Armageddon would take place as predicted by Delia. At the crater, Blaze, now fully empowered, emerged atop a massive pyramid as the ultimate prize. The warriors fought ferociously, betraying and battling one another to reach the top. Taven, armed with his sword, climbed the pyramid, determined to fulfill his destiny and prevent Armageddon. However, to his horror, he was not the one to defeat Blaze. Instead, Shao Kahn, ruler of Outworld, struck the final blow and claimed the power. This catastrophic event triggered the prophecy's darkest outcome. Armageddon was unleashed, threatening the destruction of all realms. It's kinda crazy to think about, because during the Armageddon cinematic, we see Onaga betray and abduct Shao Kahn, which implies that Shao Kahn slumped Onaga, made his way back to the pyramid, and then proceeded to climb all the way to the top and beat Blaze. This means that the end of timeline Shao Kahn is absolutely crazy in terms of power if these events truly did happen. Also, if you're wondering what happened to Shinnok, well, the Shinnok we see in the Armageddon story is a body double, since I'm pretty sure his soul was still trapped in the Netherrealm. Or he knew that everyone was going to get destroyed and decided to watch from afar, which demonstrates how cunning of a villain he is. These events lead us to the events of Mortal Kombat vs DC, where Earthrealm's forces and the Justice League team up to... Sorry guys, I forgot that we're not meant to acknowledge this ever happened. These events leads us to Mortal Kombat 9, which starts off the second timeline we've seen in the Mortal Kombat series. These events also go over the original Mortal Kombat trilogy again, but as you'll soon see, with a few changes. At the end of the Battle of Armageddon, only Raiden and Shao Kahn remained, leaving Taven and Dagon's fate unknown, but they presumably perished alongside their respective sides. Facing certain death, Raiden sent a cryptic message to his past self: he must win. Though this shattered the amulet, resetting the timeline. This disrupted Kronika's plan for the new era, but left the timeline altered and chaotic, which we will revisit more in depth when we get to the events of Mortal Kombat 10. Raiden, now armed with visions of the future, guided Earthrealm's champions Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade, and later Jax. During the tournament, Scorpion, despite Raiden's plea for mercy, killed Sub-Zero after being manipulated by Quan Chi, which I alluded to earlier with this confrontation happening earlier in the timeline, leading to the creation of Noob Saibot. Liu Kang triumphed over Shang Tsung, Goro, and others, winning the tournament. However, Raiden's amulet continued to crack, signaling further instability. This actually causes Raiden to further try to alter the timeline to avoid the incoming calamity, which you guys will soon see. After Outworld's loss, Shao Kahn held another tournament in Outworld. Kitana discovered her true origins and her sister Melina's creation, which again is different as the original timeline implies that they've been quote-unquote sisters for a long while. This newfound information causes her to turn against Shao Kahn. Meanwhile, the younger Sub-Zero was cybernetically transformed due to Raiden stopping Smoke from helping him against the Cyber Lin Kuei, which results in Smoke being saved but again Sub-Zero being captured. Raiden also allows Kung Lao to fight as Earthrealm's primary champion, as he believed that he must win must mean that someone other than Liu Kang needs to win the tournament. Due to Kung Lao's ego, Shao Kahn snaps his neck while showboating, which again is another major timeline shift, as Kung Lao didn't die in the original timeline. Despite the setbacks, Liu Kang again defeated Shao Kahn, but the Emperor began his invasion of Earthrealm, aided by Quan Chi, who resurrected Sindel and removed the magical barrier protecting Earthrealm. Raiden rallied Earthrealm's defenders, including Nightwolf, Cyber Sub-Zero once freed from the Lin Kuei's programming, and others, to fight Shao Kahn's forces. Another notable change to the timeline is that Johnny Cage is saved from being killed by Motaro, by Raiden, which I haven't mentioned previously in the Mortal Kombat 3 section, but that was because it was essentially glossed over because Raiden and the Elder Gods somehow revived him from Mortal Kombat 4, but left Liu Kang as a zombie. Despite early successes, Sindel launched a devastating assault, killing most of the Earthrealm's warriors, including Kitana, Jade, Jax, Smoke, Nightwolf, and Striker, the most important warrior for Earthrealm. Nightwolf sacrificed himself to stop Sindel's rampage, which honestly was the only logical solution because I'm convinced she could have soloed Shao Kahn in the previous timeline. Only Raiden, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, and Sonya Blade survived. Raiden attempted to ally with Quan Chi, offering the souls of the fallen warriors, which was heavily denounced by Liu Kang, but was betrayed, learning that Shao Kahn's victory would force the Elder Gods to intervene. Realizing Shao Kahn must win to trigger their punishment for merging realms illegally, Raiden tried to stop Liu Kang from confronting the Emperor. Their confrontation turned deadly when Raiden accidentally killed Liu Kang in self-defense. Now, one thing I want to point out is that there's a lot of people that considered Raiden stupid for letting it get this bad, but let's be honest, he was sold a dream by his future self. Like, the least he could have done was say Shao Kahn's name, but instead he made it cryptic, which led to Raiden making all of his mistakes. The only thing I won't defend Raiden on was accidentally killing Liu Kang, because how did you even manage that? Like, he could have teleported him or did literally anything else other than shoot full-powered lightning at him. Anyways, to get back on topic, this scene actually is very significant for the story moving forward, but again we'll get more into that once we get to Mortal Kombat 11. Raiden allowed Shao Kahn to proceed with his invasion, prompting the Elder Gods to intervene. Empowered by their might, Raiden defeated Shao Kahn, who was taken by the Elder Gods for punishment, thwarting Chronicus' plans for Armageddon. However, the altered timeline left Earthrealm in ruins, with only Raiden, Sonya, and Johnny Cage remaining. Despite saving Earthrealm from Shao Kahn, Raiden was haunted by his failure and Liu Kang's death. The timeline's instability left Earthrealm vulnerable to new threats, as Quan Chi and Shinnok prepared to exploit the chaos to claim both Earthrealm and Outworld from the Netherrealm. The moral of this story is that it's Raiden's fault, which Chronicle would 100% agree with. Moving on to the events of Mortal Kombat 10, years after Shao Kahn's defeat, Shinnok escaped the Netherrealm and invaded Earthrealm with his Revenant army, which included the deceased Earthrealm warriors, Sindel, and Scorpion. Yeah, with that lineup, I don't know how Fujin survived this invasion. The main target during the invasion was the Jinsei, Earthrealm's life force. At Raiden's Sky Temple, Shinnok nearly imprisoned Raiden and Fujin in his amulet, but Johnny Cage intervened with his mystical anti-god powers, which apparently come from an ancient tribe that could combat gods. That's literally all we know about them. This allowed Raiden to turn the tables and imprison Shinnok in the amulet. Following this, Johnny and Sonya Blade attacked Quan Chi's fortress, defeating him and his revenants. Raiden reversed Quan Chi's magic, restoring Sub-Zero, Jax, and Scorpion to life. In the following years, Earthrealm is rebuilt. Johnny and Sonya married, had a daughter Cassie Cage, and later divorced. Scorpion revived the Shirai Ryu and mentored Takeda, son of Kenshi, while Sub-Zero became the Grand Master of the Lin Kuei after defeating Sector and ending the Cyber Initiative. 20 years later, in the biggest time jump within the series, Johnny assembled a new team of fighters who we commonly call the Combat Kids: Cassie, Jackie Briggs, Takeda, and Kong Jin, training them under Sub-Zero before deploying them to Outworld. They helped resolve a civil war between Mileena, who had Shinnok's amulet, and Kotal Khan, Outworld's emperor. After Mileena's defeat, which has also resulted in her death, as well as Baraka's, who honestly hasn't really done much of anything, Kotal kept the amulet, but Devora, revealed as Quan Chi's agent, stole it and revived Shinnok. After Devora returned the amulet to Quan Chi, Scorpion killed the sorcerer in revenge for his clan's destruction, but not before Quan Chi freed Shinnok. Shinnok and his revenants attacked the Sky Temple, corrupted the Jinsei, and transformed Shinnok into his corrupted form, which drastically increased his power. Cassie's team, despite interference from Kotal Khan, pursued Shinnok to the Sky Temple. With her team occupying the revenants, Cassie confronted Devora and Shinnok, ultimately defeating both and rescuing her father, Johnny Cage. A weakened Raiden purified the Jinsei, stripping Shinnok of his powers and forcing the revenants to retreat. With Shinnok defeated, revenants Liu Kang and Kitana assumed control of the Netherrealm. A now corrupted Raiden warned them, presenting Shinnok's severed but living head and threatening severe consequences if they ever endangered Earthrealm again. These events hinted at a dark future for the realms, and it's all Raiden's fault. Now there's a couple of things I need to point out here. Characters such as Tanya and Rain both make appearances, however they play more minor roles, as Tanya and Rain are essentially just Mileena's grunts. But Rain is confirmed to be Argus' bastard son, again, which is fine, but there's no mention of Taven or Dagon within the main story, which means that the Armageddon prophecy may have been pushed back during this timeline. It's hard to tell because there are references to Taven, Dagon, and even Onaga, but they are very minor, and it brings up many other questions, with the main one being, where is Shujinko? Now I could bring up information from the comics, but unfortunately those aren't canon anymore, meaning that again we have to look primarily at what the games are telling us. This perfectly leads us to the next stop in the timeline with Mortal Kombat 11, which is where hope for the narrative was extended and simultaneously destroyed due to creative choices made previously and later on. Mortal Kombat 10 made it somewhat harder to continue on to the Armageddon plot due to the 20-year time skip, so I believe that was one of the reasons why the narrative took the direction that it did, but I'll get more into that once we visit Mortal Kombat 1. Oh my god, it's doing that again. So for those of you that don't know, there isn't much of a timeline past Mortal Kombat 10 for the alternate timeline, as Mortal Kombat 11 is the end of the second timeline, but I'll briefly summarize what happens. After the events of Mortal Kombat 10, Dark Raiden tortures Shinnok, declaring that Earthrealm's enemies will face preemptive destruction. He beheads Shinnok and delivers his head to Liu Kang and Kitana, now rulers of the Netherrealm. However, Kronika, the Keeper of Time and also Shinnok's mother, emerges with a plan to reset the timeline and remove Raiden from existence. She merges past and present timelines, resurrecting younger versions of characters like Liu Kang, Kitana and Shao Kahn, while erasing Dark Raiden and replacing him with his uncorrupted past self. Kronika allies with Shao Kahn, the Black Dragon Clan and others to build a new era. Earthrealm, led by Cassie Cage, launches a Special Forces strike on the Netherrealm, sacrificing Sonya Blade in the process. Later, Raiden, Liu Kang, Kung Lao and Sub-Zero work to counter Kronika's plans. In Outworld, after Kotal Kahn is defeated and crippled by Shao Kahn, Kitana unites the realm by defeating Shao Kahn and becoming Kitana Khan, gaining the allegiance of the Tarkatans and Shokan. Sub-Zero and Scorpion disable the Cyber Linkway, and Scorpion's past self turns against Kronika after his present self dies. Raiden discovers that Kronika has manipulated the timelines to ensure conflict between him and Liu Kang, which ties back into the scene at the end of Mortal Kombat 9. Realizing this, Raiden merges his powers with Liu Kang, transforming him into Fire God Liu Kang. In the final battle, Liu Kang defeats Kronika, shattering her and taking control of the Hourglass to reshape the timeline. In the Aftermath expansion, Shang Tsung, Fujin and Nightwolf warn Liu Kang that Kronika's crown is essential to safely use the Hourglass. Liu Kang sends them to the past to retrieve it, but Shang Tsung betrays the group, absorbs the powers of Fujin, Raiden, Shao Kahn and Sindel, and defeats Kronika. But by now you guys shouldn't be surprised considering Fujin was involved. In the final battle between Fire God Liu Kang and Shang Tsung, the timeline fractures, creating two realities. One where Liu Kang wins, erasing Shang Tsung and creating a new era with the Great Kung Lao, and another where Shang Tsung wins, conquering all realms with Raiden and Fujin as his slaves. Before we move on to Mortal Kombat 1, there's a couple more things that we have to address. For one, by Mortal Kombat 11, most of the characters' power levels tend not to make any sense, which we see directly with the Outward conflict as Kotal Kahn and Shao Kahn both defeat each other in the story mode, and then Kitana ends up being strong enough to beat Shao Kahn. As we should all know by now, this should be impossible since Shao Kahn should be around Onaga's levels of power, as we saw in the first timeline, or at a minimum around Liu Kang's level of power, who is clearly presented as the strongest Earthrealm warrior. The second thing that needs to be addressed is Sindel's retcon, as we found out she wasn't a fake crash out and was actually in cahoots with Shao Kahn before she died. Now this could be explained due to the timeline shenanigans with Raiden, but it was kind of poorly implemented. The Aftermath expansion presents them as a bloodthirsty power couple, which completely goes against everything we knew about her in the previous timeline, with her actually being a good person that cared for Edenia and Kitana. Yeah, the problems don't stop here, and soon you guys will see why I wanted to explore the timeline in full. Lastly, we have the events of Mortal Kombat 1, which is probably going to be the most controversial stop within the timeline now and going forward. In Mortal Kombat 1, Fire God Liu Kang reshapes the timeline alongside Geras to create a new era, building realms designed for peace and harmony. Due to the fracture of the timeline, Shang Tsung simultaneously crafted his own timeline, but we'll get more into that in a second. This resulted in multiple changes such as Sub-Zero and Scorpion now being Bi-Han and Kuai Liang, and they're both originally in the Lin Kuei. If you're wondering where Hanziro Sashi is, well, he's a kid being trained by Kuai Liang and Smoke. Sindel is the Empress of Outworld, with Kitana and Melina now being actual sisters. Shao Kahn is now just General Shao within Outworld's army, and Raiden is now just a regular human. Shang Tsung, elevated by a mysterious benefactor known as Damashi, disrupts this ideal world by rising as a powerful sorcerer, which in this timeline he wasn't, he was actually just a snake oil merchant essentially. Liu Kang assembles champions from Earthrealm including Kung Lao, Raiden, Johnny Cage and Kenshi, as well as allies from Outworld such as Mileena, Katana and Sindel to face this growing threat. As the heroes battle through betrayals such as Bi-Han's defection to form the Cyber Lin Kuei and Mileena's struggles with the Tarkat disease, they uncover Shang Tsung's alliance with Quan Chi and General Shao to create a soul-powered dragon army. The climatic battle introduces Titan Shang Tsung again, the one from the timeline split who is acting as Damashi, and now seeks to merge all timelines under his rule. With the help of other Titans, including Titan Katana and Titan Raiden, Liu Kang and his allies defeat Titan Shang Tsung and his allies at the Pyramid of Argus, ensuring the new era's survival. In the Chaos Reigns expansion, Titan Havoc emerges as a new threat, aiming to dismantle all realms and timelines, creating a lawless chaos. He crafts chaos-infused versions of familiar warriors, including Chaos Raiden, Chaos Sindel, and Chaos Ermac to serve him. Allies such as Cyrax, Sector, as well as Emperor Rain and Empress Tanya unite to counter this overwhelming force and retrieve both Geras and Bi-Han, who are abducted by Titan Havoc. Due to Titan Havoc's complicated chaos magic, he transforms Bi-Han into Noob Saibot, which brainwashes him at the time, but the current timeline warriors manage to save him with Liu Kang's magic and steal Titan Havoc's Kamidogu. Yes, the same artifacts that haven't been mentioned in a significant manner since Mortal Kombat Deception. The conflict culminates in Havoc's invasion of Liu Kang's timeline and a near victory, but the heroes manage to thwart his plans, dismantling his chaos-infused army and halting his bid to merge timelines. Noob Saibot attempts to end Havoc completely, but because Liu Kang hasn't started tweaking like Raiden yet, instead he banishes Havoc to the Void to save innocence in his timeline. He also keeps Bi-Han in stasis in order to try and cure him of Havoc's magic, but in Sector and Noob's arcade ending it implies that Liu Kang abandoned him, but it's not possible to confirm this plot point until the narrative is continued. Or if it's continued, because those sales are not looking hot. Now, in this short section, I want to go over my thoughts on how the narrative has changed over time, whether or not it was for the better or worse, and improvements that could be made. The easiest way to start this off would be to look at the current end of the timeline in Chaos Reigns, as it highlights many issues that the majority of players have with the current narrative. To be fair to NetherRealm and Warner Bros., I generally think they did a good job in various aspects, such as, and let me emphasize this before someone runs to the chat to express displeasure, the characters of Sector and Cyrax, Emperor Rain's portrayal, and Noob Saibot's portrayal. Sector and Cyrax had an entertaining dynamic, and specifically Sector felt like a more interesting character with her dynamic with Bi-Han in my opinion. Emperor Rain gave a very interesting take on Rain's character, as he was the literal opposite of what we've known Rain to be, and Noob Saibot fits Bi-Han like a glove, which also references back to those themes established all the way back in Mortal Kombat mythologies. However, specifically with the expansion, the actual narrative was a major weak point because at the end of the day, the only significant thing that happened was that Bi-Han got changed into Noob Saibot, and even then, many people believe that Noob Saibot's transformation happened too fast. Now, I don't necessarily agree, as we've established that in most Mortal Kombat universes, Bi-Han ends up becoming Noob quite quickly from what we're able to experience, but I do believe that Noob was introduced as a cash grab. The same thing applies to Sector and Cyrax, as many longtime fans wanted to see their favourite cyborgs back, but instead we got characters that for one, in my opinion, should have been brand new Cyber Lin Kuei initiates, and two, they narratively do not make any sense. This is due to Liu Kang being the creator god of the new timeline, meaning he literally looked at Sector and Cyrax from the old timelines and said, yeah, they'd have better lives without balls. Clearly, the reason why Sector and Cyrax were changed in this manner was for marketing, but honestly, I feel like the wider community would have gave them more of a chance if they were new characters. Similar to the way they introduced the Kombat kids, who were heavily praised and accepted because again, I think these characters are interesting and could be built upon. All of these issues I've highlighted with the plot of Mortal Kombat Chaos Reigns all stems back to Mortal Kombat 11 and the narrative direction of heading into different timelines and the multiverse. Mortal Kombat 1 was a great point to reboot the series and fully tell a whole new story, but all it ended up doing was placing the narrative in limbo. Items such as the Kamidogu now don't seem as powerful since they're meant to resurrect the one being once gathered, but now they just alter timelines. Anything that happens within this story doesn't matter because they can just pull another Raiden or Liu Kang or Katana from another universe if the current timeline one dies. Characters which people have grown up and loved are retconned out of nowhere and changed when it's unnecessary to do so. Even the Elder Gods essentially get removed from the series, with Cetrion killing them in Mortal Kombat 11, even though they were a major part of the series, although they were useless. Cetrion herself is an Elder God, but with the way they're portrayed in the modern games, it's almost like they're an afterthought. At the start of the timeline, there's a rich history that happens well before the first game's events even happen. Within the older game's time period, it feels as if there's so much to explore, discover, and the story leaned heavily into its fantastical and horror elements, but now it feels like I'm witnessing the MCU phase 4 all over again. This is all likely due to corporate greed, as you can tell there's a clear difference in ideas and how to handle the story from the original Mortal Kombat all the way until Mortal Kombat 10, and again, I don't think Mortal Kombat 11 is even bad, but that's where the wheels started to fall off. It's similar to how I view the Star Wars sequel trilogy, as The Force Awakens wasn't that bad, but because of what came after, it amplified its flaws. And you know, that might be a video I might be working on, but I'll have to see. The final thing I want to mention is the chapter system, which is severely holding the Mortal Kombat narrative back. Since the chapter system ensures that the character you're playing with is going to win, it creates many issues with storytelling and the power scaling, which you can look back again at the Katana vs Shao Kahn fight in Mortal Kombat 11. Shao Kahn in the original Mortal Kombat 11 story is treated as a very weak character, since he didn't get his own chapter, which meant that he lost every time he appeared. This is why many people dislike NetherRealm's changes, as if the story mode switched between characters, it would have allowed a more creative and consistent story, which would have either been able to justify Katana winning, or even flat out had Shao Kahn win that fight. NetherRealm even acknowledged their mistake by giving Shao Kahn his joint chapter with Sindel, but again, their changes with Sindel were also disliked. Conscious of the time, I'm going to wrap it up here, but going forward, I genuinely think that Mortal Kombat is going to struggle narratively, because nowadays they're banking on nostalgia like Auron and Chaos Reigns, or bringing in multiple different versions of characters rather than trying to develop and continue the story in a natural way. Okay, so that is the end of the video, guys. Thank you guys very much for watching, and for you guys that have been through part 1 and part 2, again, huge thank you. You guys smashed it last video. You guys hit 15 likes way too fast. I was midway trying to make this one, and then I saw you guys, I was like, oh, I need to now pick up the pace, but I'm hoping I got it out in a fast enough time for you guys. I hope it wasn't too long you guys were waiting for. As for the next video, I haven't really planned that out yet. I've got a couple ideas, but you know, we'll get to that. Honestly, I'm just hoping that Metaphor, ReFantazio, and Marvel Rivals does not take up all my time, because for you guys that, you know what I'm saying, for you guys that want a little bit of insight as to what I've been doing with my time, you know, I've had those bits and pieces in there as well. I don't know if I'm going to make videos on them yet. Again, I'll have to see. But one thing I do want to know is if you guys have any other ideas or videos you want me to make, or any sort of comments, any sort of how you feel about Mortal Kombat or even the timeline as a whole, just make sure to leave them down in the comments below. Again, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care and have a lovely rest of your day.